Even the Damanese Homo erectus from Georgia in the Caucasus, which is, by the way, is an area which, if you look at the World Health Report on Goiter, is the Caucasus and a lot of other regions like in Africa, even the cradle area bordering on the cradle humankind area in South Africa, a Goiter region means people
What's a goiter again? Yeah.
Where you get this, people might get this large swelling in the neck because they lack iodine in a diet. Okay. But it can be particularly bad if a woman is pregnant and doesn't have iodine and iodine during pregnancy because the fetus or the baby developing doesn't get it, and it doesn't develop a normally functioning thyroid, and that leads to cretinism, which can lead to cretinism, which basically you don't have a properly functioning thyroid, so you don't produce thyroid hormone or enough of it.
And what does that look like?
Well, that means your metabolism would really slow down, and it leads to really stunted growth. The bones grow more slowly, some more than others. And as Charles Oxnard, an evolutionist, pointed out, some of the alleged primitive, he's an evolutionist, but I say alleged primitive features seen in some of these ancient fossils that I believe is part of human evolution can be mimicked in cretinism. But if you understand some of how the bone grows and how cretinism affects it.
So they might be saying that this is a missing link or part of evidence for evolution when actually it might be cretinism that has affected it.
I believe you could have robust human with cretinism. Like I believe that could explain, say, the Hobbit or Homo floresiensis.
The Hobbit?
Yeah.
What's the Hobbit?
That's the sort of the really small size specimen found in the island of Flores in Indonesia. That was a big thing a few years ago.
They've called it the Hobbit.
Yeah, it has a brain size a little bit over 400 cubic centimeters. So I also believe that may explain funny things seen in the Homo lily specimen in South Africa. But it also may explain some of the features in the Damanese erectus ones, because they also had a very small brain size, not as small as a hobbit, but sort of around. So particularly skull 5 is really strange, and I think so. You could be looking at something because cretinous can reduce brain size by up to 50%.
Oh, that's a lot.
So if you had a small brain Homo erectus, robust human, you could actually explain a lot of it. Or even an average human, you could explain the Damanese erectus if it had cretinism and some of the other features. But what I was going to say is one of them had some other clear pathology because it had all the tooth missing and alveolar reabsorption. The bones would be reabsorbed, to both upper and lower jaws. So it indicated that it had been like this for quite a while, if months, if not years. And that indicates someone must have looked after it.
Why?
Because only humans would go out of the way to take care of someone like that because they can't chew. How would you eat if you had no teeth? And it would have probably not been that well.
So it would have died. So it obviously had to have been looked after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so and there was even a Homo erectus skeleton found in Africa that seemed to had really pathology. I think it was some sort of vitamin A, maybe too much of vitamin A or something. But anyhow, it seemed to have had this pathology for a while, which means someone must have looked after it too. I forget the name of the skeleton. Was it KNME 1808? I'm not 100% sure. So there are evidence that they looked after themselves. Even the Damanese ones, which may have been sort of pathological, they looked after them. They're infirm, and only humans do that. And there's a lot of interesting controversy in South Africa concerning Homo naledi. I won't really get into that, but because it seems that even though there's been a pushback, but there's been more studies recently that these small brain specimens actually buried their dead and used fire and things like that, and only humans do that, deliberate burial of the dead and using fire. So which is very interesting. But I believe some of the specimen were really pathological. So whether cretinous may explain that. There's evidence that from one of them, I talked before about Lucy's small centrum and the sacrum attached to the pelvis. Well, there's one there which had part of its the centrum too of this sacrum, and it was smaller than anything seen in the fossil record, which indicated you're dealing with an extreme dwarfism, and that's a feature of cretinism.
Okay. If there was something you could use to finish us up today, Peter, what would you tell us?
Well, I think a statement by an evolutionist called James Shreve made a few years ago kind of sums up the area. He says, everybody knows fossils are fickle. Bones will sing any song you want. And so that is kind of this thing. And so what I've just tried to show is that there's a totally different interpretation of his fossil, and your worldview lenses determines how you look at them. But if you really want to disproof of evolution, go inside the fossil's head and then look at the brain, look at the complex biochemical machinery inside there, where God's not just his fingerprints, but his hands are all over it. And that's what I finish up saying.
Thank you, Peter, so much for your time today.
A pleasure.
We're also offering a free stream of the documentary Evolution's Achilles Heel. And there's a section in here on Neanderthals which touches a bit on what we were talking about today. The link will be in the description below.